All right, we are in the home stretch in terms of fractions. We have two sections left. This section is going to be divided into two parts. This is going to be adding and subtracting mixed numbers. This comes from section 3.4 of the textbook. So let's go ahead and see what we're going to do. Now remember that with multiplying and dividing mixed numbers, we always had to convert to improper fractions first. For adding and subtracting, that is not the case. And so in this presentation, we're going to talk about adding and subtracting by leaving them in mixed number form. So the easiest way to do this is to line up vertically. We're going to add the whole numbers and then add the fractions. Now me personally, this is not my preferred method, even though sometimes I do use it, only because problems can vary from very easy to more challenging. And so it all depends on what kind of problems you're looking at. One of the issues that arises is when we do our addition, if the fraction part is an improper fraction, then we do need to carry, like we did with our whole numbers. So in order to do this, we're going to convert to a mixed number and add the whole number part to the rest of the whole numbers. We're also going to bring back our estimation, so we'll review that as we work through these problems. All right, so let's look at example A. We have 16 1/8 plus 5 5/8. And the first thing we want to do is estimate. So for our estimate, 16 1/8, since 1/8 is smaller than 1/2, we're going to round down. So we're going to write this just as a whole number. This is 16, and we drop our fraction. Plus 5/8 is bigger than 1/2, so we're going to round up. We're going to turn the 5 into a 6 and drop our fraction. And then now if we go ahead and add, we get 22. Now technically you don't have to line these up vertically, but it's similar to when we added and subtracted whole numbers. We talked about lining up our columns. So the first thing is, this one is going to be a pretty easy problem for several reasons. The first is that we already have our common denominator. We already have the like denominators. And so this one we can go ahead and just add straight down. So 1/8 plus 5/8, we add our numerators, we get 6, keep our denominator, over 8. We want to add the whole numbers. 16 plus 5 is 21. And we're done. Another thing that makes this an easy problem is that we get a proper fraction here. This is not an improper fraction, so we don't have to worry about carrying. The only thing we do need to worry about is simplifying. So 6 and 8 are both divisible by 2. My whole number stays the same, so we get 21, and my fraction simplifies to 3/4. Finally, is this in the ballpark of 22? Yes, it is. All right, let's go ahead and try another one. Let's start with our estimate. 7/8 is bigger than 1/2, so we're going to round that number up to 7. We add 1 onto the 6, and we drop the fraction. 1/4 is less than 1/2, so we're going to round down. I'm going to leave my 2 the same, and I'm going to drop the fraction. And then we add, and we get 9. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is find our exact answer. We have 6 7/8 plus 2 1/4. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to bring over my whole numbers. I want a least common denominator. So what is a number that is divisible by 8 and 4? You should get 8. Remember, we have to multiply to it. So 7/8, we can leave that the same. 1/4, to get from 4 to 8, we want to multiply by 2. We're going to do the same thing to the top and the bottom, and we get 2/8. All right, so now if we go ahead and add straight down, we get 6 plus 2 is 8. 7 plus 2 is 9. We keep the denominator. Now this one is an improper fraction. You cannot have an improper fraction in a mixed number. So what I want to do is I want to convert it to a mixed number. 8 goes into 9 one time. We multiply, we subtract, we get 8. So what we have here is we have our original whole number, the 8, plus we convert our improper fraction into a mixed number. This is 1 1/8. And now we combine our whole numbers. 8 plus 1 is 9, and we have 1/8. All right, let's try one more like this, just to make sure that we have it. Let's look at example C. Starting off with our estimate. 4/5, is it larger than 1/2 or smaller than 1/2? This is larger, so I'm going to round up. So we're going to turn the 15 into a 16, and we drop our fraction. What about 2/3? 2/3 is also larger than 1/2, so we're going to round up. We make the 12 into a 13, and we drop the fraction. And if we combine these, we get 29. All right, let's go back to our exact. So again, I'm going to line up vertically. We want an LCD. So what is a number that is divisible by 5 and 3? Our answer is 15. So the first fraction, to get from 5 to 15, I want to multiply by 3. I'm going to bring over my whole number, and I'm going to rewrite my fraction as 12/15. All right, the second fraction, if we go ahead and rewrite with a denominator of 15, I want to multiply by 5. So we get 12 and 10/15. All right, if we add straight down now, we get 15 plus 12 is 27. 12 plus 10 is 22. And we keep the denominator. Again, this here is an improper fraction, so I need to go ahead and convert it to a mixed number. 15 goes into 22 one time. We multiply, and we subtract to get 7. So now this is essentially 27 plus 1 and 7 over 15. If we combine the whole numbers now, this is 28 and 7 over 15. Is that in the ballpark of 29? The answer is yes, so this should be good. All right, so that takes care of our adding, and the next thing we want to do is look at subtracting. So again, we're going to line up vertically. We want to subtract the fractions and subtract the whole numbers. Now, when we talk about subtracting whole numbers, remember we used borrowing. And so we're going to have something similar to that. If the top fraction is smaller than the bottom fraction, we borrow. So we're going to subtract 1 from the whole number and place it with the fraction, and convert that to an improper fraction. So let's go ahead and try some examples. Again, let's go ahead and start with our estimate. 8 and 5/8. 5/8 is bigger than 1/2, so I'm going to round up to 9 and drop my fraction. 3 and 1/12. 1/12 is smaller than 1/2, so we're going to round down to 3 and drop our fraction. And if we subtract, we get 6. All right, let's go ahead and do our exact answer now. So I'm going to start by lining up vertically. I want to know my LCD. So what is a number that is divisible by 8 and by 12? I'm going to work with 24. So the top fraction, in order to get from 8 to 24, I want to multiply by 3. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So I get 8 and 15 over 24. 1/12. To get from 12 to 24, we want to multiply by 2. So we get 3 and 2 over 24. And just remember that we are subtracting here. If we go ahead and subtract now, we subtract our whole numbers. 8 minus 3 is 5. 15 minus 2 is 13. Over, keep the same denominator, we get 5 and 13 over 24. All right, let's come over to example B. Let's start with our estimate. 7, there is no fraction that we have to work with, so we're just going to leave it as a 7. 5/6 is bigger than 1/2, so we are going to round up to 3 and drop our fraction. And if we subtract 7 minus 3, we get 4. All right, so let's go ahead and do the exact now. So we have 7 minus 2 and 5/6. Now, one of the things to remember is that we are subtracting. Remember that with subtracting, you always have to do top minus bottom. And so what is 0 minus 5 6? Well, it gets kind of weird, and we don't like it. Can I take 5 6 away from nothing? The answer is no. So what we want to do is I'm going to split up this 7 into a 6 plus 1. I'm going to borrow from my 7. So I'm going to put a 1 over with my fraction so that we can subtract. Now the other thing that we need to do is we do need common denominators. So I'm going to rewrite 1 with a denominator of 6. That is equal to 6 over 6. I'm going to bring over my minus 2 and 5 6, and now I can subtract. I actually have a bottom number that is smaller than the top number, or a top number that is bigger than the bottom number. And so now if we subtract, we get 6 minus 2 is 4. And 6 minus 5 is 1. We keep the denominator. So we get 4 and 1/6. Let's try one more just to make sure that we have it. Let's look at example C. So starting with our estimate, 1/3 is smaller than 1/2, so we're going to round down. We're going to make it a 7, and we drop our fraction. 5 6 is bigger than 1/2, so we're going to round up to 5 and drop our fraction. Subtract, we get 2. All right, so let's go ahead and do the exact answer now. All right, so the first thing I want is LCD. A number that is divisible by 3 and 6 is 6. So my top fraction, I need to multiply by 2. We get 7 and 2 over 6 minus 4 and 5 over 6. Again, we have that issue again. Notice that my top fraction is smaller than my bottom fraction. I cannot subtract 2 minus 5. So we need to borrow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 1 away from the 7, make it a 6, and I'm going to put 1 with my fraction part. We want to convert to an improper fraction, so we're going to do 1 times 6 is 6 plus 2 is 8. Now I can subtract. My larger number is on top. So if we go ahead and subtract now, we get 6 minus 4 is 2. 8 minus 5 is 3. Keep the denominator. All right, so now we do need to simplify. 3 over 6 is not a simplified fraction, so we want to divide by 3. And we get 2 and 1/2. Okay, so this is the first method that you can use in order to work with mixed numbers. Me personally, and this is just me personally, this is not my favorite method just because you have lots of different difficulty levels that you have to work with. It's fine and dandy if you don't have to carry or you don't have to borrow, but when you start having to carry and borrow, then it does get a little bit tedious for me. So in the next presentation, I'm going to show you another method that we can use. And the second method is going to be by converting to improper fractions in the beginning. All right, so take a quick break, and then I will see you again shortly to continue our discussion of mixed numbers.